Hey everyone, welcome back. Stacker here. In today's numismatic news and information for the 15th day of May 2023, I'm going to take you over to JM Bullion so we can look at the live spot prices, the availability on those 23 Eagles, as well as the premium on those Silver Eagles. But before that, huge shout out and a big thank you to all of our channel members. Really appreciate all y'all's support. Thank you so much. Now over here to JM Bullion. Looks like gold is up $8.04 to 20.28.29. Silver up 9 cents to 24.25. Platinum up 7.91 to 10.77.4. And palladium up 13.34 to 15.80.34. The availability right there, you're looking at in-stock American Silver Eagles, and the credit card PayPal payment is 47.12. And look at that, the difference with the ask, you're looking at 22.87. Now over here, obviously it was over the weekend since today is Monday, so there'll be no new tale to tell for the additional inventory. All right, now over here to the Google machine, and if you were, well, not paying attention over the weekend, I can tell you, they talked a lot about the debt ceiling crisis. And this is probably something they're going to be talking about for the next 2 weeks, I would imagine. And one thing I wanted to share with you is, what are people thinking about this? What are the scenarios? And that's the main thing is there's a few scenarios I wanted to share with you, and that was from the Washington Post. But before we talk about the scenarios, let's kind of get a feeling of what's going on with all of the major media outlets. So here we go. Washington Post says, if U.S. debt ceiling isn't raised by deadline, what does default mean? So it's coming from a place of ignorance, right? Like, I don't know what it means. What do you think it means? I don't know. Right? So they're going to explain it to you what it means. Okay. So that's what that one means. So if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be like going here. All right. Now it says here, if U.S. faces significant risk of running out of cash in June, the budget office warned. So you're going to read that one if you're interested in that. Now, here we go. U.S. at significant risk. Here we go. Look at that. That's the budget office warning. So that's two of the same one from 2 days ago, Axios and New York Times. So it's a little redundancy there, even the photograph. Now, here we go. Debt ceiling worries deepen as early as June. All right. Default reinforced. Here we go. Social Security advocates brace for debt default. Seniors should be prepared. Prepared for what? NBC News. Should they be buying gold? Should they be getting together and growing their own food? Or what kind of preparation, all right, should seniors have right now? It says here, every family should be concerned about U.S. debt ceiling. What kind of concerns and what should their actions be? That's really the question I always have wondered is, after all these alarming notifications, like for the debt default and everybody should be concerned and should be prepared. I mean, what is it that people should do? I mean, is it that they can't give advice because you can't give economic advice or financial advice? Although for the last 3 years, everybody was given medical advice. I don't know. It's so weird. I don't know. But let's go here to Yahoo. All right. So this is from the Washington Post or by Yahoo News via Washington Post, either way. 7 doomsday scenarios big if, like definite possibility of a firm maybe. All right. The U.S. crashes through the debt ceiling. And there is the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. And, it's interesting. Her words are very interesting, and we should be paying attention to them. Now, it says this is a 9-minute read, and I've got some kind of issue over here. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to try and not focus on that. It says federal workers, this is Jeff Stein, 2023 Washington Post, Sunday, May 14, just yesterday, 9 a.m., so it's less than 24 hours old. Federal workers furloughed. All right, so there's some really basic sentences going on here. Federal workers furloughed. Federal workers furloughed. Social Security checks for seniors on hold, soaring mortgage rates, a global financial system sent reeling. Okay. Leaders from Congress and the White House are trying to forge an agreement to lift the federal debt ceiling, with only a few weeks before the Treasury Department may no longer be able to avert an unprecedented U.S. debt default. All right. And what makes it unprecedented? That's what I want to know. So a lot of words are used, but they don't really give specific examples. Okay. But that's just the way this is written, because it is guess what? Yeah, they're just scenarios and they're what ifs, right? Now, let's keep on keeping on. If they fail and the government can't meet its payment obligations, economists and financial experts predict chaos. It says here it would be a lethal combination, said Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's. You can see how this thing could really metastasize. I don't even believe I said that correct. I apologize. And take down the entire financial system, which would ultimately take out the economy. That is not pretty picturized, but there you go. That's a doomsday scenario. But there's no real specific anything here. It's a lot of big, I don't know. I think it's just to get you fearful. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said that the agency may, there you go with the only mays. I'm telling you, if they speak in the definite possibility of firm maybes, you might want to just take it with a grain of salt. May only be able to sustain operations until June 1st before running out of money if government can borrow more. Well, the other one said mid-June, right? Well, which is it? I don't know. I'm not an expert and I'm not in charge of the agency, but I would think that they all should be on the same page. All right. That specific deadline, known as X date, depends on tax revenue and spending, which can fluctuate dramatically from week to week. There you go. That's probably why the June 1st deadline and mid-June is mentioned. All right, so that's cool. What happens next is also hard to predict. It says the cascading impacts of default would probably compound. A pause in federal payments would hurt the economy, which would hurt the stock market, which would in turn hurt the economy even more, and so on and so forth. The interaction between collapsing home values, rising interest rates, and destabilized global financial system are hard to calculate. Okay, so there's other stuff going on other than the debt default. Some estimates suggest that more than 8 million jobs could be wiped out. Where and what sector? Okay, which people should be worried about that? Because if they're thinking 8 million jobs, what jobs are they? All right, where did they get those from? I think that's important to know. Are they banking sector jobs? It's interesting, right? Mortgage rates might soar by more than 20%, according to some projections, and the economy would contract by as much as it did during the 2008 Great Recession. All right, the story continues. But what economists stress above all else, is the unpredictability. They don't know what's going to happen, okay? Particularly if the breach lasts for weeks or months. Experts stress that the worst-case scenarios are unlikely if lawmakers only narrowly miss a deadline, perhaps by hours or even a few days, but that the risks rise dramatically should the standoff persist. All right, so this basically is just going over, hey, we don't know, it could happen, maybe. We don't know, this has never happened, said Claudius. I am liberal economist who worked at the Federal Reserve. What makes me so concerned is I can't sketch out, and I don't think anyone can, what happens at X plus 1. Here are some outcomes that experts worry about most. All right. And I think there's more than this, but that's all right. It's a good idea. So stocks crash. We know what's going on there. Wall Street would probably be the first trouble spot. Okay. So far, financial markets haven't swung much over the debt ceiling standoff. The price to hedge against U.S. government default has risen, and the cost of government bonds due around the debt ceiling deadline, reflecting doubt about repayment. But those tremors are not noticeable for most households. All right. Yeah, not really. So who is going to get hit by this, right? Think about that if the stock market gets hit. All right, the last time the government neared default, stocks took a bruising in 2011. The X date was less than a week away during the standoff between President Barack Obama and Republicans in Congress. Major indices fell by roughly 20%. And doesn't this happen all the time, folks? It seems like this is a political game that is used constantly. It's just one of those things about our country. It's the way it works. Now, it says here, a sudden recession. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. And what kind of things can you do to protect yourself from this sudden recession? Okay, this is huge. If the standoff persists, the impact would quickly spread from financial markets to the broader economy. Now, how quickly? Within weeks, months, they don't know. All right, job and household wealth across the country caused by a sell-off on Wall Street would reduce consumer spending, which would hurt businesses too. All right, there you go. Also says a spike in interest rates would make it much harder to get a loan or start a small business. That could also crash the already cooling housing market. That's interesting how they tie those two together. A recent report from Zillow projected that a default would drive mortgage rates above 8% and push housing sales down by a startling 23%. Now, what they're not mentioning is because that 23% sales down, the homeowners would actually have to lower their price. So we would see rising interest rates, but we also, I believe, see lower home prices. So you would have that equilibrium happen. All right. Now, they say the most drastic impact might be a pause in regular federal payments to tens of millions of American families. Yeah, including seniors on Medicare and Social Security and people relying on food stamps. All right. Everybody relying on those entitlements. The federal government is now think about that. If they get you hooked on it and you can't get off of it, I mean, you're going to be clamoring for it because you can't live without it, right? They took away your independence. The federal government is projected to spend roughly $6 trillion this year, which translates into roughly $16 billion per day. That's a lot of cheddar. Not all of that goes directly to households, of course, but a huge amount of money to vanish the economy overnight. Absolutely. Federal workers in limbo. I don't think anybody's worried about that too much, except the people that work there. Social Security, medical payments, right there. U.S. borrowing costs soar, absolutely. Economic problems spread worldwide. We'll see about that. I don't know. I think China's the big dog on the porch now, maybe not the United States, but we'll see about that. And then finally, here we go, the number 7 spot I highlighted. I think this is probably what concerns us the most. You know what? And I will leave a link to this article in the description. But what happens generally when the dollar drops? You know, I'm not an economist. So I don't play one on YouTube, and I don't play one anywhere else except for my home with my own cash money. But let me ask you, what generally happens when the dollar drops? And that's an interesting question. So it says here, number 7, dollar drops along with U.S. prestige. Has U.S. prestige already been taking a hit? Yeah, and it could take a further hit, right? That's amazing. How low can you go? You know, I didn't know there was a cellar at the bottom of the hole. A debt default could hurt U.S. standing on the world stage, experts say, by revealing the depth of the country's internal political dysfunction. I think they already know about that right there. That's kind of obvious. Already, financial experts have been following some early signs that the world economy is beginning to shed its dependence on the dollar. Y'all know that already, and if you don't know that already, you haven't been paying attention for the last 2 years. Now, with countries such as Brazil and Malaysia calling for nations to trade more frequently in other currencies other than the dominating dollar. Roughly 60% of foreign currency exchanges still happen in dollars, but a default on U.S. debt would send the value of the greenback reeling, and that could change, right? That's brutal. As Yellen in Japan on Thursday said to reporters about a default, it would also risk undermining U.S. global economic leadership and raise questions about our ability to defend our national security interests. Something more fundamental may also be at stake. Government's credibility is tied into part to their ability to respond to a crisis. A debt ceiling breach would cast doubt on the federal government's capacity to not only respond to an emergency, but also to fulfill one of its most elementary functions, paying the bills. If the United States can't do that, citizens and leaders in other countries might wonder, what else can't it manage anymore? Now, it says it's going to erode global confidence in our political system, because part of our standing in the world is based on our national confidence that our political system is basically functional, said Daniel Bergstresser, associate professor of finance at Brandeis University International Business School, and this would show it isn't. Yikes. So I think that once this happens, I do think we're going to see a debt default. I think we're going to see a bunch of banks go under. Because if I go to the Google machine and I type in bank failure, and it should say that the bank failures are isolated. Well, yeah, they are isolated, but they're isolated to whom? And I don't think they mean isolated like, oh, it's just over there in those couple. I think it's a whole sector. I think when they say it's isolated, it's the small and medium-sized banks. And I think those are the ones that are going to be going out of business, or maybe not that, but consolidated from the big boys. So eventually, we're only going to have maybe 10 banks, maybe 5 banks here in the United States once this financial crisis is over. And at that point, once those 5 to 10 banks are around, we will be seeing I believe, a digital currency backed by gold. All right, so that's my prediction. I've been predicting that for a while. I've only added the bank stuff just recently since March. All right, so here we are in May. Now, let's head over here to the plus ones today. These are great. Bam. This is Psalms 10:15. This is a big deal, folks. It says here, this is like setting examples, right? Break the power of the wicked and the bad one. You will search for his wickedness, and you won't find it not. Basically, what I think that says is that when we break the power of bad folks, like it says right there, wicked, those tempted to follow that, to imitate that, are going to be less likely to do so. Because they say, oh, they saw what happened. Yeah, there you go. So let me do something a little bit different here today. Bam, right here, boom. This is the whole album. I don't know what's going on there, but this is ELO. All right, it's a double album. I don't know about the acetate listing. I don't know what's going on with my computer. I think there's a kind of machine language error. But anyway, long story short, this is Electric Light Orchestra, Time, 4K. Probably you can see all the titles and the tracks there. Good stuff. Listen, I hope you liked the video today. A lot of stuff going on everywhere, and a lot of things seem to be happening at once. But I think if you just focus on your world, you can improve your situation. All right, so thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. And if you do like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the channel. It's free. Stacker out.